It's 4 p.m. Cairo local time, and you're watching Qnews. We begin today's bulletin with the latest developments in Gaza. The death toll in Gaza from Israeli attacks since October 2023 has reached over 48,365, with 111,780 others injured, according to Gaza health authorities. Hospitals in the region received 17 more bodies and 19 wounded individuals in the past 48 hours. According to Egypt's State Information Service, intensive discussions are underway to advance the ongoing truce deal and ensure the implementation to implementing all terms of the Gaza ceasefire agreement in every phase and detail. The group has urged the international community to pressure Israel into fulfilling its obligations under the deal and immediately proceeding to the second phase without delay or evasion. Israeli media, citing an official source, has reported that Israel will not commit to the ceasefire agreement unless a resolution is reached on Gaza's future, including efforts to dismantle Hamas's authority. Earlier reports indicated that Israel is willing to maintain the ceasefire in exchange for time-limited negotiations on the release of living detainees. However, sources added that without a deal on detainees' release, humanitarian aid deliveries to Gaza will not continue. China has reiterated its firm support for the Palestinian people's struggle to restore their legitimate national rights, urging the international community to push for a comprehensive and lasting resolution to the conflict. Speaking at the 58th session of the UN Human Rights Council in Geneva, China's permanent representative to the UN, Chen Zhu, expressed deep concern over the humanitarian crisis in the occupied Palestinian territories, particularly in Gaza. Chen emphasized that the two-state solution remains the only viable path to peace and reaffirmed that Gaza is an inalienable part of Palestinian land. He also stressed that post-conflict governance in Gaza must uphold Palestinian self-rule and rejected any forced displacement of its people. United Nations humanitarian workers say that the expansion of kitchens, water points and healthcare facilities is gradually improving living conditions for Gaza residents. In a statement, the UN Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs, OCHA, emphasized that the UN and its partners are seizing every opportunity to increase life-saving assistance in the region. Efforts continue to address the critical humanitarian needs amid ongoing challenges. U.S. President Donald Trump has stated that his administration has held productive talks on Gaza and it's working towards solutions for the Middle East.
It's a rough situation, but I think we're going to make it much better. And I think that we've had a huge impact on that since we've been in just the 4 weeks. I think we've had a huge impact on Gaza, the Middle East, and we have some pretty good talks going on concerning lots of other people that are going to make it better. So we'll see what happens. Nobody really knows, but we'll see what happens. But I think we've had a very positive impact.
The United Nations has announced on Thursday that a 5-day vaccination campaign resulted in over 600,000 Palestinian children under the age of 10 in Gaza being vaccinated against polio. UN spokesperson Stefan Dujarric announced the completion of the campaign, which was launched after the discovery of the polio virus in sewage water samples from Deir el-Balah and Khan Yunis in December and January. Palestinians in Gaza's Khan Yunis have geared up for the Muslim holy month of Ramadan, with some light decorations set up between the rubble and crowds shopping in markets. Despite a ceasefire between Israel and Hamas, people in the Palestinian enclave remembered Ramadan before the war and said that the festive atmosphere is overshadowed by the struggle of the daily life. The Egyptian State Information Service has confirmed that delegations from Israel and Qatar have arrived in Cairo to continue negotiations on the Gaza ceasefire. American representatives are also taking part in the discussions. The concerned parties have already begun intensive talks focusing on the next phase of the ceasefire agreement. Efforts are underway to ensure the implementation of the previously agreed upon terms. In addition, mediators are exploring ways to enhance the delivery of humanitarian aid to Gaza with the aim of alleviating the suffering of the population and supporting regional stability. And now we move on to the latest developments in Lebanon.
كل المستهدفين هن مدنيين.
وضع شيء مرعب، شيء بخوف.
UNICEF has warned that Lebanon is grappling with immense challenges in recovering from war and economic turmoil. The agency reported that 45% of Lebanese households have been forced to cut spending on health care, while over 25% of children remain out of school despite the end of armed conflict. The crisis is particularly dire for young children, with more than half of those under 2 years old suffering from severe food insecurity in eastern Lebanon. Lebanese Prime Minister Nawaf Salam has vowed to strengthen the country's armed forces by enhancing their capabilities, training and equipment to bolster national defense. He emphasized that the army is expanding its presence in southern Lebanon to reinforce stability along the border. Salam also stated that Lebanon will not tolerate any attacks on UNIFIL peacekeeping forces, calling for the immediate prosecution of those responsible for recent security violations. Israeli Defense Minister Israel Katz has declared that Israel will remain in the buffer zone in Lebanon indefinitely, claiming that the move has received a green light from Washington. Speaking at a conference in Tel Aviv, Katz confirmed that Israel has submitted a map of the designated buffer zone to the United States, which has allowed Israeli forces to maintain their presence in the area without a set time frame for withdrawal.
שאנחנו רוצים להחזיר את החטופים, החיים ומי שאינם בחיים. זו המטרה העליונה שלנו, זה הציווי שלנו, זו הערבות ההדדית שלנו, וזה מה שאנחנו פועלים ונמשיך לפעול. יש כאן רצועת ביטחון, והיה לא פשוט, אבל עמדתי על זה, וקיבלנו אור ירוק מארצות הברית, הגשנו מפה, ואנחנו ללא מגבלת זמן נשארים. תלוי מצב, לא תלוי זמן. אנחנו לא עשינו הפסקת אש בעזה, כי מנועי הטנקים התעייפו, שצריך להביא חלקי חילוף. לא עשינו כי חסרה תחמושת. לא עשינו כי החיילים נשחקו, עשינו רק בגלל סיבה אחת. בגלל שאנחנו רוצים להחזיר את החטופים, החיים ומי שאינם בחיים. זו המטרה העליונה שלנו, זה הציווי שלנו, זו הערבות ההדדית שלנו, וזה מה שאנחנו פועלים ונמשיך לפעול. יש כאן רצועת ביטחון, והיה לא פשוט, אבל עמדתי על זה, וקיבלנו אור ירוק מארצות הברית, הגשנו מפה, ואנחנו ללא מגבלת זמן נשארים. תלוי מצב, לא תלוי זמן. אנחנו לא עשינו הפסקת אש בעזה, כי מנועי הטנקים...
For more analysis on the situation in Lebanon, we now move to Salma Marwan in our newsroom. To you, Salma.
Thank you, Hela. And for further analysis on the current situation in Cairo, we're joined from Cairo by the international relations expert, Dr. Muhammad Osman. Dr. Muhammad, welcome to Qnews. First, let me start by asking you, how severe is the humanitarian crisis in Lebanon, particularly regarding the food insecurity among children, and what immediate measures can be taken to address it?
Thank you for having me, Salma. Lebanon went through over a year of conflict with the Israeli state of occupation. Israel has waged a low-scale war on Lebanon for about a year, and afterwards this war escalated into a full-blown war between Israel and Hezbollah in southern Lebanon, where Israel ravaged southern Lebanon and eastern Lebanon, the Beqa Valley, with numerous airstrikes, and they actually invaded the south, occupying the entire border area and demolishing over 40 towns and villages and small cities. By that, they have displaced over 1.5 million Lebanese civilians. And of course, this caused a significant humanitarian crisis. Now the war is over. Israel has withdrawn except from 5 strategic border areas that are on high hills inside southern Lebanon, yet they have evacuated most of the villages and the towns they destroyed. The problem is these towns and villages do not exist anymore. Israel has wiped them off the map. So now the Palestinians, the Lebanese, face an acute problem of prolonged displacement in the midst of a very acute economic crisis, and this necessitates a very urgent intervention by the international community.
Yes, sir. If I may cut in, speaking of the economic struggles, Prime Minister Nawaf Salam has vowed to bolster the military capabilities of the Lebanese army. And from here, I would like to ask you, how do Lebanon's economic struggles impact its ability to strengthen the military? And what are the key priorities for defense reinforcement under Prime Minister Nawaf Salam?
Well, today Prime Minister Salam visited southern Lebanon in order to see for himself as the new national leader the situation in southern Lebanon and the war-torn areas and the areas where the people have been displaced. And of course, he spoke about strengthening the military and enhancing its capabilities in order to, first of all, convince Hezbollah that your resistance is no longer needed, that the army will take over the national defense of Lebanese territorial integrity and sovereignty, because he does not want Hezbollah or any other movement to drag Lebanon back into a war with Israel, and this is logical, of course. And also, he is conveying a message to the Americans and to the Israelis and France and the West in general, telling them that a strong Lebanese military is the only guarantor of stability in southern Lebanon, because it will be able to enforce Resolution 1701 that will ensure that Hezbollah will maintain no military presence south of the Litani River. And of course, in order for the Lebanese army to be able to do that, either for Lebanese territorial integrity or for Lebanese obligations under the Resolution 1701, they have to have a strong military. The Lebanese military suffered from an arms embargo over the past years. Now the Arab world and the United States have to take proactive action in order to provide military aid to the Lebanese armed forces, because the Lebanese economy cannot withstand a significant increase in the military budget. So they need aid in order to enhance their military capabilities, in order to sustain stability and calm in southern Lebanon.
Now, regarding Israel's indefinite presence in the buffer zone in Lebanon, what are the legal and diplomatic implications of this, and how will this affect regional stability?
Of course, the legal implications, it is an illegal occupation of Lebanese territories. Since before the war, Israel has already occupied the Sheba farms inside southern Lebanon. Now their occupation has extended to 5 border areas that have established, as you just said, a de facto buffer zone inside southern Lebanon, and the Israeli forces move out of these positions into the adjacent border villages to prevent the locals from coming back to their homes. So, of course, this is an illegal occupation of Lebanese territory, and Lebanon is a sovereign member state of the of the United Nations. Form of pressure on Israel under the Trump administration is completely unwilling to exercise any pressure in this regard. So therefore, we see Israel expanding their military occupation and presence in southern Lebanon and in southern Syria, and saying that this presence will be open-ended. And as for the implications for regional stability, of course it will have implications, because it will always be a cause for future instability. When Hezbollah regroups and potentially reconstitutes its forces, it might try to launch attacks against the Israeli occupation of Lebanese territories, and it will always be an incentive for the idea of resisting foreign occupation, which will bring conflict back into southern Lebanon maybe in a few months or a few years. So therefore, the Israeli presence inside southern Lebanon compromises the chances of future regional stability. And this might actually be what Israel wants, because they might want a future war with Lebanon in order to occupy more Lebanese land and occupy the entirety of the southern Litani River in a few years. That might be the Israeli plan, but of course that's my pure speculation in this regard, Salma.
Now, Sarah, with the ongoing tensions and the security threats, if you can expand on the role that UNIFIL play in maintaining stability, and how can Lebanon ensure better protection for the peacekeeping forces?
Of course, the UNIFIL forces, their presence is instrumental for the sustaining of the ceasefire in Lebanon, and to prevent further escalation, and to also ensure the proper implementation of Resolution 1701. They have to ensure the implementation on the Lebanese side, meaning on the side of the Lebanese army and Hezbollah. But on the other hand, they have to also ensure its implementation by Israel. And unfortunately, Israel is completely uncooperative with the UNIFIL forces in southern Lebanon. In fact, during the war, they targeted the UNIFIL forces and UNIFIL bases and personnel several times, injuring and killing UNIFIL soldiers. So that's the problem, and that's the problem with the double standards. And I will not lay the blame on UNIFIL or the Lebanese government, because they are the weaker part. The blame here is on the Western powers, particularly the United States, France, and European Union countries. These are the countries that can guarantee the viability and the strength and the mandate of the UNIFIL forces. If they exercise proper pressure on Israel, they will observe the role of UNIFIL, and they will respect it, and they will cooperate with it. As long as they don't, they will always render UNIFIL as an incredible actor that cannot deliver, and therefore it will also be viewed by some of the residents of southern Lebanon as another occupation force. And actually they were attacked several times by Hezbollah supporters, for example, in the vicinity of the Beirut airport a few weeks ago. And of course, this was a very dangerous indication of how the high level of tension has reached in Lebanon, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm. From Cairo, that was the international relations expert, Dr. Muhammad Osman. Thank you so much for joining us here on Q News. And now we're going to move back to Hela in the studio.
Thank you very much, Salma. In response to a worsening caregiver shortage, Japan is developing AI-driven humanoid robots to assist in elderly care. At a Tokyo University lab, the AI-driven robot Eric is being developed to assist in elderly care, performing tasks like repositioning patients and preventing bed sores. With Japan's workforce shrinking by 9.3% in the next decade, Waseda University researchers, backed by government funding, aim to ease caregiver shortages through robotics. Eric can already help patients sit up, dress, cook, and do household chores. Also, lead researcher Professor Shikigo Sugano expects widespread use by 2040 and full integration by 2060. While concerns persist over human interaction, experts say that robots will be essential to tackling Japan's aging crisis. Firefighters are working to contain widespread fires in Japan's northeastern coastal city of Ufunatu, which has been burning since Wednesday. Footage from the Fire and Disaster Management Agency shows crews extinguishing smoldering ruins and tackling a raging forest fire as thick smoke blankets the area. Authorities have deployed 1,800 personnel and 7 helicopters to combat the blaze, which has scorched approximately 600 hectares and damaged at least 84 homes and buildings, according to the Ministry of Internal Affairs and Communications. Efforts to bring the fire under control are ongoing. New findings from China's Mars rover Zhurong provide key evidence that an ancient ocean once covered Mars's northern plains, raising the possibility that the planet was once habitable. According to the Chinese Academy of Sciences, data from the rover revealed multiple layers of inclined sedimentary structures 10 to 35 meters beneath Utopia Planitia in Mars's northern hemisphere. These geological formations closely resemble coastal sediment deposits on Earth, which only form in stable, long-standing bodies of water. The discovery suggests that Mars may have experienced a prolonged period of warmth and moisture, increasing the likelihood that it once supported life. Zhurong, China's first Mars rover, landed in Utopia Planitia in May 2021. Countries meeting in Rome have reached a late-night agreement to mobilize $200 billion annually by 2030 to halt and reverse biodiversity loss. The UN's COP16 biodiversity talks, which began last October in Colombia, had stalled over financing issues, leading to this week's negotiations in Rome. The breakthrough comes amid global geopolitical tensions as U.S. President Donald Trump scales back development finance commitments. Led by negotiators from BRICS nations, the agreement outlines a plan to secure at least $200 billion per year from various sources to protect global ecosystems. And that brings us to the end of our news bulletin. Here's what we have been covering. Hamas reaffirms full commitment to implementing all terms of Gaza ceasefire agreement. China reiterates support for Palestinian rights and urges international community for lasting resolution. Lebanese Prime Minister Nawaf Salam vows to strengthen armed forces with enhanced capabilities and training. And this concludes our news bulletin for this hour. Don't forget to follow Q News on YouTube, Facebook, X, Instagram, and TikTok at Q News EG to stay informed. I'm Hala Al-Hamalawi. Thank you very much for watching and stay tuned for more updates here on Q News.